You know, one of the things that an old guy like me struggles with as time goes on is it seems to me like in so many ways the world is kind of impersonal now. It could be my imagination, but I notice it on the parking lot. We have 65 kids that park their car here and walk to Sandburg, and I remember back in the days when my kids parked here and they all drove beaters. Now there's nothing but new cars out there now. But now I'll go out there in the morning and I'll sometimes say, hey, how you doing? Have a good day. And they got their earbuds on, they got in their phone, and they just walk right by you and pretend like you're not there. And I kind of miss back in the old days, the kids would go, hey, Rev, the Bulls really stunk last night, didn't they? We'd talk about the Bulls, or maybe if I was shoveling snow, they'd help me, and there was kind of more of a community feeling, like you really knew each other. But I guess that's just the way life is. Or just trying to get an appointment with your doctor, or trying to make an appointment for this or that. You get on the phone, you never get to talk to somebody, and you're on hold, and it's just such a relief when somebody actually answers the phone. I remember years ago, I'm not sounding old, I remember back when Marquette Bank was Orland State Bank, and I would go down to Orland State Bank, 143rd Street, and right inside the main door was a little office, and that's where Willard would be. Willard Rowley. And he just was kind of like the Walmart greeting guy. He would say hi to you. If you had to find some department, he would take you there. He just was kind of the welcoming guy and made you feel comfortable. And so I did a sermon about Willard. And I remember in the middle of the week, his daughter calls me. I have no idea who they are. He said, I understand you preached about my dad this week. And I said, well, yeah, I did. She said, you must really be desperate for material. And I say, well, I'm pretty desperate for material every single Sunday I come here. But then a little while later, I went into the bank and I didn't see Willard anymore. And I found that he had passed away. And it made me kind of sad because he was just kind of the open door to wending your way through whatever your day might be. And so now it's Marquette Bank, and then there's Denise across the street. Denise has been a teller at Marquette for a long, long time. And I think she's a part marriage counselor because I always stand in line and she's always talking to a senior citizen. And they're not talking money. They're talking grandkids, vacations, and she looked at me and said, I'll be right with you, Mr. Borling. Well, you sit there for 10, but it's so nice to see someone like that because I just love that kind of personal touch. And then she said, well, sorry, this is my last day. And I said, no. She said, yeah, I'm being transferred to a different branch, and it's that personal touch that sometimes just kind of gets you through the day. So this morning I went out to get something out of my truck, and the sun had just risen. I don't know if you saw it this morning. It was one major sunrise. And I just looked at this, it's like it hit me like a bullet because the sun was so bright and so clear. And I said, when we live in a world with that kind of sunrise, how can we be at war with anybody? Because that sunrise belongs to no one, and yet it belongs to everyone. And I got to enjoy the sunrise. And what is the sunrise like over Ukraine or Turkey or Syria? And I'm sure the sunrise is even over Russia. And how can we fight? How can we take away innocent lives when we're given that kind of gift in the world in which we live? So anyway, we had the spaghetti dinner last night, and I do this top 10, which is just brutal sometimes. But last night I did a thing about 10 things that remind me that Jesus is Lutheran. And the Catholics in the crowd looked at me like I had two heads. But even though I was kind of making fun of the whole thing, on my way home last night, I thought about it. And I thought about who Jesus really is. And what does it really mean to believe in Jesus? Because Jesus was quiet, and he was humble, and he was gentle and kind. He had a power about him that is kind of hard to explain. It wasn't a power that's born of the kind of power we think of, but it was a power born of a spirit that had the gentle power to change lives. And we have built churches and sanctuaries and have all kinds of different religions, people claiming that I believe in Jesus and that makes me a Christian. And last week I had a funeral for a guy, and his nephew came up to me, and he said, you know, my uncle was not a Christian. And I don't think my uncle believed in Jesus. So is he going to go to heaven? And I said, well, that question is kind of above my pay grade. And I wanted to just take him over here and talk to him for a little while, but we were at a funeral home, and it was just time for the funeral. And I thought to myself, what does it mean to believe in Jesus? Because Jesus was Jewish. From the time he was born until the time he died, he was Jewish. We are the ones that invented Christianity. Jesus didn't. And so I'm thinking about Jesus' spirit, his gentle power, and I realize that Jesus is not Lutheran or Catholic or Jewish or anything. But to me, Jesus is kind of like the universal person, a person that exudes a spirit that speaks to the human spirit no matter what religion you may or may not be. And to me, there's only one kind of temple that matters. I'm glad we have this temple here. It's simple. We get together. We talk about stuff. But the only temple that really matters is the one that lives inside your heart and soul. Because when you walk out this door, you go into the workplace and take care of your family and fight all the stuff you're fighting for, how you walk and how you speak, that's where Jesus lives. And that knows no label or denomination. It just is. The decency and the kindness and the power of the human spirit. And that's what Jesus teaches us every single day. And that is what religion is. What does it mean to believe in Jesus? It means to walk in his sandals and to walk in his spirit and to make a difference in our little corner of the world. Had an event Friday night. I was asked to do a 50-year wedding renewal. And a lot of times when you do a renewal, it's the most important thing is not me being there. They get him out of the way so we can have a nice party. But the groom, Ed, is a combat Vietnam veteran and was a lifelong firefighter. And he has a heart as big as gold, but his heart is very frail. And so he's in a wheelchair, and he's on oxygen. And it's their 50th wedding anniversary. And his wife, Murphy, sits over there in that section, and many of you know her, but she's now home taking care of him. So I went to the Ashford house for this wedding renewal. And there, Ed was greeting everybody in his wheelchair with his oxygen. And God, some of his old firefighter buddies and Navy buddies would come in, and some of them surprised him, and they kind of gave him a big, gentle hug. And I'm just watching the exchange between him and his family and friends, and it was very, very moving. And then at the end of the renewal, he wanted to play the song Voyage, which is a beautiful Irish song, The Voyage. And so I got done with my part, and I sat down, and they played the music to The Voyage, and he got up out of his wheelchair very slowly, and he and his wife danced to the song Voyage. And there was not a dry eye in the house. Because I remember what we talked about a couple weeks ago, about rise up and walk. Well, he rose up, and he walked to his bride, and they danced the dance. And see, he is an Irish Catholic, has never darkened the door of our church, but somehow, some way, we have become friends. And for some reason, they asked me to come and do the renewal. And I tell you, when I saw him, and I saw his wife, and I saw the people around, I saw Jesus. I saw Jesus walking. I saw Jesus talking. I saw Jesus breathing the spirit of goodness into each one of us. You know, rise up and walk. Every day, that's what we are called to do. And life is a voyage. And I guess the promise is that in the voyage that we have, this spirit of this humble carpenter, he walks that voyage with us. And I do know this. The next time the phone rings, I'm going to answer it. Because you never know what that person needs on the other end of that call. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed.